Hi, my name is Lauren Ellis, and I am a kindergarten teacher in Jacksonville, Florida. Kindergarten. So this project was ambitious for me and hard to fit in with these 5-year-olds running around all the time. But I did enjoy it, and I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to share with you all the things I've learned. This is the, I think, 9th time I've tried recording this video to upload it to YouTube. So fingers crossed, this is the lucky time that works. So my topic was Lev Vygotsky. I hope I'm saying his name right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. And his theory of social constructivism. Now, his theory was formed after Piaget produced his theory of cognitive constructivism. Vygotsky determined that the interactions with others were a critical element for critical thinking and for learning. He thought that every function in the child's cultural development appears twice. First, on the social level, and later on the individual level. So first, between people or inter-psychological, and then inside the child, so intra-psychological. This applies equally to voluntary attention, to logical memory, and to the formation of concepts. All of the higher functions originate as actual relationships between individuals. Vygotsky's theory is based on cognitive dialogue, the zone of proximal development, social interactions, and culture. Vygotsky's theory included 3 major themes. 1, social interaction. 2, the more knowledgeable other, or MKO. And 3, the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. The 3 major themes included elements that can often be observed in today's classroom. Vygotsky's first major theme suggests that social interaction plays as a fundamental role in the development of cognition. Now, being a primary teacher, I love hearing this because we really strongly believe in social learning and grouping kids together and playing as a way to develop. It's also really evident in classrooms where students can be observed working cooperatively together, so in differentiated groups or in small groups around the classroom. Vygotsky viewed interaction of peers as an effective way of developing skills and strategies. For an example, cooperative learning is evidenced in writer's workshop. Writers encourage one another by listening and editing their partner's writing. Social interaction can also be evidenced in the grades who collaborate with the social studies unit when they are tasked with learning, exploring, and understanding each other's culture. The second major theme that guides students' learning is the idea of the more knowledgeable other, or MKO. The MKO refers to anyone who has a better understanding or a higher ability level than the learner with respect to the particular task, a process, or a concept. The MKO is normally thought of as being a teacher, a coach, or an older adult. But the MKO can also be peers, a younger person, or even computers. We also believe a lot in this in the kindergarten room, and I'm sure in the other grades too, and across the curriculum, that peer teaching is actually really beneficial. Sometimes we put a higher level student with a lower performing student, and they really learn off of each other, and that higher student loves being able to teach the lower student, and the lower student really likes learning from their peers. The teacher is usually seen as a coach, and this is becoming more common, and it's a more common phrase that's being used in education. Collaborative learning should be seen as a process of peer interaction that is mediated and structured by the teacher. The teacher does less direct instruction and more facilitation of learning by first, briefly introducing and clarifying new concepts and information, and then linking the new information to previously learned material. Next, the teacher encourages students to learn experientially through discussion, hands-on activities, and additional peer collaboration. Reciprocal teaching is another application of Vygotsky's theory used to support student reading and their understanding of the text. Teacher and students collaborate in learning and practicing 4 key skills: summarizing, questioning, clarifying, and predicting until the student gains a higher level of proficiency or independence in the task. Now, I know I do this in my classroom all the time, and I didn't even realize I was using a social constructivism theory. So the third major theme of Vygotsky's theory is known as the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. The zone of proximal development is when learning occurs with the support of the teacher in the classroom. Students learn easiest when the information is taught in the range of their zone of proximal development. When they've achieved success, they will be able to add on to the knowledge they've acquired. Vygotsky's theory concentrates on the social interactions and cultural experiences that help promote successful learning. Piaget and Vygotsky describe social constructivism as an alternative approach to promote the process of learning through constructing meaning while acquiring knowledge instead of memorizing the introduced concepts. Social constructivism is based on experimental learning through real-life experiences to construct and conditionalize knowledge. Now, a constructivist classroom, for example, can be described as a student-centered classroom. The students in this classroom setting become their own teachers, and the teacher again becomes the facilitator rather than the dictator. The goal of a constructivist teacher is to create an environment that motivates students to learn. And after all, isn't that the goal of every teacher? A constructivist teacher has to learn the proper ways to elicit learning through asking meaningful questions that connect to the student's prior knowledge. A constructivist classroom should be overflowing with educational resources that encourages students to want to discover and to ask questions. It is important to remember that in a constructivist-style classroom, the learning experience is going to be an active one. A constructivist classroom is unlike any other classroom. It develops into a small society where students are engaging in activities, working with peers, and sharing their own ideas with classmates. Teachers acting as these facilitators are responsible for provoking higher-level questioning and higher-level thinking that encourages their students to look for answers and develop meaning for what they're learning. Teachers try to instill a good work ethic into their students that enables them to not give up until they are satisfied with the knowledge that they have newly acquired. Constructivists feel that self-regulation is an important goal established for this learning style because it leads to the success of the students. Now, I know I have a lot of self-regulation happening in my classroom in kindergarten. The groups really like to regulate each other and regulate themselves, and we have some what we call bossy boots who really like to run the whole show. But in this kind of classroom, the students are having the ability now to monitor, reflect, and evaluate how they are learning in the classroom. Plus, they're adapting their behaviors to the new environment. When developing a constructivist-style lesson, we must remember to include 4 fundamental features that must be incorporated always into this lesson. So we have eliciting prior knowledge, creating cognitive dissonance, application of new knowledge with feedback, and reflection on learning. A teacher can obtain prior knowledge of a particular concept by asking the student informal questions, or by having them write in their journals, or even by developing some sort of a pretest. It's important for teachers and students to share their ideas on a particular concept so that the teacher has the opportunity to clear up any misconceptions that a student may have about the particular concept. Next, a teacher must be able to create cognitive dissonance. This can be achieved by making the students aware of the difference between their prior knowledge and the new knowledge being taught. Group discussions allow for students to make connections between their prior knowledge and new knowledge, ultimately leading to a successful transfer of permanent knowledge. The final step in a constructivist lesson is providing time for the students to reflect on what they have just learned. Self-reflection, making connections, and a higher form of thinking are the most important goals to obtain when teaching a constructivist lesson. Now, based on recent research, historically, the social constructivism approach to teaching is more successful than traditional teaching. For example, traditional lecture has faced scrutiny as not actively engaging students in the subject matter. Now, I know we can all agree that we've been there before. We've been sitting in a lecture and zoning out or not paying attention or, oh, it's so boring. But studies have confirmed that the social constructivism theory enhances individualized skills, abilities, and learning inclinations that could have an impact for more technology literacy, especially within the K-12 curriculum. Social constructivism encourages discovery. It's hands-on, it's experiential, it's collaborative, it's project-based, it's task-based learning. One method is through scaffolding, providing a student with sufficient information to be able to complete a task on his own or to present a gradual decrease in the amount of help available, allowing the student the capacity to work independently. In a social constructivist classroom, direct instruction typically lasts only 5 to 10 minutes at a time. After the direct instruction is finished, students work together in groups to solve problems. At that point, the teacher becomes part of the social group, facilitating and encouraging students to work with one another. Wandering around the room from group to group, the teacher guides the conversation while also getting an idea of how students are struggling. The additional formative assessment informs the teacher's instruction. So, as a result of Vygotsky's social constructivist theory, educational practices and student learning have become more enhanced. Children appear to enjoy learning more as they are more actively involved rather than passive listeners. Constructivism also promotes social and communication skills by creating a classroom environment that emphasizes collaboration and the exchange of ideas. Students learn how to articulate their ideas clearly, as well as to collaborate on tasks effectively by sharing in group projects. Lastly, learning activities are grounded in an authentic, real-world context that stimulates and engages students. Now, one of my questions for you listeners out there is, what are you already doing in your classroom that seems to reflect the social constructivism theory? Because I know when I was researching this, I thought to myself, hey, I do that in my classroom. And I didn't even realize that I was practicing Vygotsky's theory. Another question I have is, if you aren't really doing much of these things, would you be interested in maybe a social constructivist classroom? And if so, how would you operate it? How would you make that happen? That's my challenge for you today. Thank you for listening. Bye.